Okay, so I was out here doing some lathe work the other day, and I got looking at this faceplate, and it looked kind of dingy and grungy. You can see this bottom one down here. It's got oil and dirt and stuff built up. So I started wiping this faceplate down, and when I did, it started actually wiping some of the ink off. This is just an inked-on piece of aluminum. You can see right here, it's just held on with some screws. There's 4 screws. This whole plate comes off. So I thought, I've kind of got a problem with that. Now this has got the label on it. It's got all the specs of the lathe. It's got the date the lathe was made. It's got the serial number. And then over here it's got some warning verbiage with that I've actually never read since I've had this lathe. So I thought, I'm gonna see about making a new plate, identification plate. And in this area, I think I want to put some actual useful information, things that I use on a pretty regular basis when I'm doing lathe work. You can actually see right here where, it's gotten worn, from the years of moving the levers. But anyway, we're going to get started on this. The first thing that, and I've already kind of done a little bit here to kind of get an idea of what I'm going to do. But these handles just unscrew, and then after you unscrew those 4 screws will take this plate completely off. And I've actually already done that. And I've got a piece of stainless steel here, and there was 2 ideas that I had. I didn't know if I wanted a brushed look or if I wanted a jeweled, otherwise known as an engine turning look. And I'm glad I did this experiment, because after I jeweled this bottom section of this plate, I noticed that depending on how the light hit it, it made it kind of difficult to read, the letters. Up here on the brushed look, it's just a lot more even. Even when the light reflects off of it, you can kind of get your head in a spot to where, you can at least uniformly read the letters. And this is the information I'm going to put on it. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. I've already done a test run here. And I think it's going to be a pretty nice looking plate. I'm also going to do this lower plate. If this one turns out as good as what I'm hoping, I'll do this plate. And I'll probably end up doing this one down here too. Now, for whatever reason, this one's held on with brads. These 2 are held on with screws. But anyway, I've already scanned this into my computer. What it is, I removed this panel. And we're about to go into my office, and I'm going to show you the setup that I used to do that. And then I'm going to finish prepping this piece of stainless, and then I'm going to start the laser burn on it, and which is what this is. This is laser engraved. And then we're going to cut the 3 holes in it for these handles to stick through. And as far as anything needing to be critical, it's these 3 holes. These 3 holes obviously have to be spaced properly and the right size, so that whenever that plate goes over it, those, come out without rubbing the plate. I don't want it to rub whenever I move the handles. So let's go into the office and let me show you what I've done. All right, guys. So here we are at the computer. I've got Lightburn pulled up, which is the laser burning software that I use, and I have the faceplate imported in here. Now you can tell that I had to stitch this together because the scanner, my printer / scanner did not, it wasn't big enough to be able to scan this entire thing at once. So I had to do part of it and then the other part, and then I just used Photoshop to stitch them together. And you can tell that one piece was a little bit lifted up higher than the other. That's why that not everything is lining up just perfect, but that's really not important. The main thing I needed to know was, pretty close to where things were positioned. Well, once I imported it into Lightburn, I measured the panel to make sure that I had the exact dimensions. The first thing that I did is I made this border, and the border is the exact size of the panel itself. The next thing I did is I just made the holes, or what's going to be the holes, just a couple circles. I did 100 thousandths border around it, which is more than what the original As you can see, the original is just real light. I just thought I'd go a little bit bigger. What's this? You can see these little dots right here, and what those are is the exact center of these circles, so that whenever it's burnt to the metal and I transfer it over to the mill, I'm going to use the mill to cut these circles out, and that's going to tell me exactly where the center of these circles are. So it's just a reference to help me whenever I'm cutting these out on the mill. Then I did the little letters right here. You can see that they're not perfectly lined up with the old ones, because the old ones, if you look, let me turn that on. We'll turn these others off. Turn those off for now. You can see that, you can see the A, for instance, it's not perfectly in the center of the box. The B, none of them's actually perfectly in the center of the box. Well, I made mine perfectly in the center of the box, just so it looks better. So that's what that's all about. Made the little borders around those. And I just did all this in light burn. Made these a little bigger than the original, so just because my eyesight's getting worse and worse, it seems like. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Now this is where I wanted things to be a little different. Let me turn this image off right here. So this right here, this is the information that I've got a chart up above my lathe, and I use this all the time when I'm doing threads, and I need to know the major diameter and what drill size to use for common threads. I use this all the time. So I thought, why not have an actual chart right here at the lathe, so I don't have to walk around my lathe and look up there on the wall and figure it out. Now it's right here on the lathe. It beats, like I said, I've never read the actual warning. Right, I've never read any of this. So why, not to say that's a good thing, but I mean, I've never read it. So why even have it there if it's something you're never ever going to use? The way I look at it. Anyway, let's get on with this. Let me just turn everything on, kind of show you what I've done. What was he? Oh, yeah. So this is pretty much the entire thing. Turn the rest of this stuff on up here. We'll turn that off. Turn those on. This is the entire thing, the way it's going to look whenever it's burnt. Oh, and then this upper area right here. Well, that's normally not, that's just dead space. That's the way it originally is, even on the factory one. I thought, I'd like to have something up there. I tried to come up with some more information, commonly used lathing things that I use, but I really couldn't think of anything. So I thought, why not just go ahead and put my little logo up there for my YouTube channel and be done with it. So this is going to be what it looks like. Now, of course, whenever you zoom in, you see more detail, which hopefully that's the way it's going to turn out, after we get it all burnt. So the next step that I want to do is, you can see right, let me turn these off. Might be a quicker way to turn a bunch of these off at once, but I don't know how to do it. I need to make sure, so yeah, the only thing that's on, yep, are the circles. I need to make sure that these circles are exactly where they need to be. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut these out on a piece of cardstock and make sure that they overlay those handle bosses sticking out of the front of the lathe. And here's what it's going to look like. This is the way it's going to, play out. I'm going to cut the 3 circles, and then I went ahead and cut the border too. Now, I'm just going to use a piece of cardstock, which is not big enough for this entire border, but it will have the 3 circles on it, and it'll have most of this border going around it. And that will be enough for me to know that once it's engraved on the metal, everything's going to be lined up the way it should be. And then whenever I cut these out on the mill, those will be right where they need to be. Now the screw holes, these screw holes right here that screw this plate, there's 2 down here in each corner, and then there's these 2 here. I'm going to use this plate, the original plate, and I'm going to overlay this on the new piece of metal, and that's how I'm going to pick these holes up. I'm not going to try to measure these and hope that I get them, which I could do. I mean, I could figure out and get close enough to where once it's all burned, I would have these little round things going around the screw, but I really don't care about those, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to use this panel as a template, lay it down, line these 3 big holes up, clamp it, and then I'm going to use just a hand drill. I'm just going to drill these 3 small holes out, and then we're going to screw it on the lathe once I cut these 3 big holes out. Right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to save this G-code, send it to the laser, and we're going to go out and we're going to cut this out on a piece of cardstock and make sure it overlays the face of the lathe. So let's do that. Okay, we're here at the laser hole test was what I named that file. Just making sure we're lined up good enough. That should do it. We'll do a quick frame just to make sure that yeah, that looks like it's going to work. You can see what I'm talking about. The piece of paper is not big enough. This is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and the panel is 9 by 10 and 10.4. So paper's not quite. Oh, I didn't want to frame it again. We're going to hit go. Paper's not quite the size of that. So, but the main thing I want here is the 3 holes, and then as it cuts the border out, that's going to help me know that all my dimensions, the critical dimensions, are correct. I also put a little radius. I'm going to rate the panel on the lathe's not radius, it's just sharp corners, and I don't really like that. So it's the nice thing about doing your own stuff is you can make it exactly the way you want. Okay, those are popped out. Let me get it lined up and I'll kind of hold it, and then I'll come back so that you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, that looks pretty darn good right there. You kind of see how they're all sticking through and they're not touching. Top's lined up. So I think that's going to work just fine. So now we need to prep this piece of metal, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a DA with some probably about 120, 400 grit sandpaper maybe. I'll see how it looks once I kind of rough this up. But I'm going to rough it up and hopefully get like a matte finish is what I'm after. If that doesn't give me what I want, then I'm going to do just a straight back and forth brushed look like I did in this area, because that will definitely be adequate enough. But I'm hoping that that DA will give me a kind of a omnidirectional finish, but we'll see. Anyway, till I get to that point. Okay, so here's the piece of metal. I've kind of got just a matte omnidirectional finish, and all I did is I took this DA sander and I hit it, I believe that was 120 grit sandpaper, which seem to leave a nice nice finish. So now the next step is we've got to spray some of this Brilliance on it. So let me get that done. I'll show you what it looks like. Should be plenty. This stuff's magic. All right. Okay, we're out here at the laser. I've got the file loaded up. We'll do a quick frame just to make sure that we are looking good. Right on the edges. And we're going to let her go. We'll come back whenever it's done. All right, so there we go. Turn that noisy thing up. So it looks like I was a little too low on my framing, and this piece of sheet metal isn't quite square, which is no big deal because I'll be able to just lightly sand those right up to the line. So let's rinse this off and let's see how it looks. Show you how nice this Brilliance is. The airplane came out great. Look at that. That is beautiful looking. Now the only thing I got to do is, other than sanding the edge to get it uniform, is to cut these holes out on the mill. And see what I mean by the little dot that I put there. That tells me that's the exact center of these circles. So whenever I set the mill up, I'll find that center and then I'll put my cutter in to cut those circles out. And then I've got my chart right here. That's going to actually be very handy to use. It all looks good. This is a carbide tip hole saw. We're going to see how that does, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I just noticed the GoPro camera locked up, so I don't know how much of that footage you got, but we got all 3 holes cut. I'm getting ready to cut or drill the small holes here. I've got the original faceplate taped to the new piece of metal. Got these 3 holes lined up where they need to go, and I've just got 4 pieces of tape holding them together to kind of keep it where it needs to stay. So we're here on the mill, and all I'm going to do is fire it up and go to town. And there we have it. I'll hit these with the sander, smooth them out, and I'll get it screwed on. Alright, so there's the new faceplate. Hopefully that's coming through as good as it is in real life. The nicest thing about it to me is the fact that I've actually got useful data right here on the plate itself. I thought about actually not even putting this. This is basically the specs of the lathe, which all this is in the maintenance manual, or in the manual for the lathe. And I mean, you never really look at this. You know what size lathe you've got. You don't really need to look at this to know anything else. So I thought about putting some information there, you know, extending on with this list. But this should be plenty helpful. But you can see how much cleaner and nicer that faceplate is. Here's the original. Still got tape on it from the drilling process. There's the dingy old faceplate that was kind of wearing off. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I tried to clean it and I noticed the ink is starting to wear off. So I laser burnt a new plate. Anyway, so this is a Grizzly G4003G. It's you know, they consider it a gunsmithing lathe, but the G4003 is pretty much the same lathe. And yeah, easily made faceplate. I like it. Next is going to be this one right here. You guys take care.